The City Council of the City of Alpine, Texas will hold a regular meeting at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, May 18th, 2021 at the City Council Chambers located at 803 West Hall Avenue and via Zoom conference in the City of Alpine, Texas. Meeting login details will be found at www.cityofalpine.com for the purpose of considering the attached agenda. Notice here is posted pursuant to Texas Open Meeting Act, Section 551.043, Texas Government Code. Members of the audience will have an opportunity to address the council on any agenda item after determining the form and proof of notice of the meeting. Zoom meetings, comments, and question rules and procedures are listed in the city website. Remarks will be limited to a total of 3 minutes per person. Please email your name to g.calderon@ci.alpine.tx.us. If you have a petition or any other information pertaining to your subject, please email it to the city secretary beforehand. All names wanting to make public comments for the meeting will be queued upon and given to the mayor at the section of the meeting. The mayor will call upon those individuals one at a time, and a meeting moderator will take you off mute to make your comments. This will function the same as our existing sign-up sheet in council chambers. Please note, you must include your full name, first, last, along with the ward if you reside in or have business interest in. If you do not live or own property in the city, please state that in your email. State law generally prohibits the council from discussing or taking any action on any issue not included on the agenda, but if appropriate, the council may schedule the topic for future discussion or refer the matter to staff. No personal attacks on council members or city staff will be allowed. The mayor and or city council members will call upon the order to stop personal attacks. If an individual continues to personally attack the elected official or staff member in a meeting, they may be part. This meeting's order will have pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor and Texas flag. Pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. City Secretary, you will have a forum.
Mayor, we do have a quorum, and the notice is posted at 11 a.m. on May 13th, 2021.
Okay. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, Mayor, we have several
Yes, sir.
public comments.
Yes, I'm sorry. Please address the podium, please.
My name is Karen Cantrell from Ward 3. I have a couple of things to talk about the agenda tonight. The two items that are on the agenda have already been discussed and approved or discussed and voted on in council. They're a moot point. I found out the other day and copied with the chief when our paving schedule is. So we need to attract new businesses to Alpine, not hash over old business. We need to figure out how to do that. I would like to see us create some more affordable housing. It's definitely needed. And then there's some form of entertainment for the young adults, such as the bars. We have some businesses that maybe have some mini golf or some pool tables where they can go in and enjoy themselves without cigarette smoke and beer all around. Henry Ford says, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. We need to be a little more progressive in this town. So, thank you for listening. I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
And just a quick reminder, public comments are limited to 3 minutes, so I'll be notifying you whenever the 3 minutes is up.
What's that?
Third row, the list over here.
Okay, if they want to address it, then they're welcome to it. That's what it's for.
I'm Carl Fleming from Ward 5. I'd like to welcome new representatives for Ward 1, 3, and 5. Hopefully you will all read the city charter and as many ordinances as possible as soon as you can. They're all very, very important to the day-to-day business of the city. We're not here just to vote. but to represent your constituents for what is best for Alpine. Personal agendas are not usually representative of what your constituents want.
Thanks, sir. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Oh, we got,
Okay.
go ahead.
I'm gonna take up the whole 3 minutes.
Okay, hi. New people. My name's Laura Gold. I live in Ward 3. And welcome to what feels like a new season. I have a couple things I just want to bring up. Lots of good work has been done. Goals have been created and achieved by the city. And we're just getting started. I can just feel this motion going. So things are happening and are good. There's transparency, there's camaraderie, there's good communication, there's problems, but we're working through them. And that communication is the key part. So along that line, I want to just ask you to think about the scheduling for future city council meetings. I know you want to, it's coming up on the agenda, the procedures to change it to during the daytime hours. I don't know, a lot of people work. Just afraid it might cut down on your participation, participation. So just a thought. Zoom is great, but it's really hard to take 3 hours out of your day at work on Zoom. So you pay for it. But the other thing I want to follow up on was kind of like what Carl was saying. How these are questions not intended to be answered, but how will what you do make this better? Okay? Make the city better, make the council better, be a better representation of your community. Are you available to your community? Do you let them find you? Do you respond to them when they need you? Are you open to everybody? Or just your circle of friends? What's your philosophy? What's your leadership philosophy? So really, that's all I wanted to say, and I think it's important to remember to, the golden rule. What happens when you do unto others as you would have them do unto you? Not preaching, just philosophy. So I wish everybody well. Welcome to 1, 3, and 5 new members. Look forward to seeing you down the future and any other outside of city council things too. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
She's not asking me to repeat my name. My name's John Schnitt, my name's Rena. I'm in Ward 4. I have a few questions for the council, and my questions are, pertaining to those with felonies. Seeing that in Texas, a felony cannot be expunged, it has to be pardoned by the governor. Do we have insurance for when we hire felons? And knowing the Texas code that I was in awe of, Texas does not allow felons to hold any public office. And seeing how Mr. Zimmerman's position falls under your guidance, city council is considered a government agency, which now the secretary is now falling underneath the government agency. Felons are not allowed to work in any public office. My concern is that, but my main concern is this. In 2019, city council broke law appointing a felon as interim city manager. Y'all are for us. You guys are for us. And me being 49 years old, and mind you, I grew up in California. My residency now is in Texas. I see a total difference from when I was little to now. And I don't like it. I really don't. I'm all for felons getting jobs. I'm all for that. I'm all for reform. But what I don't understand is if council is here for us, how are we going to trust you guys if you guys aren't abiding by Texas law? And that's what scares me, because I want my grandkids to come here, but right now, there's nothing for them. I want to be able to apply for a position without the nepotism that is going rampant here in Alpine. I want to be able to do that, and I would love for other people to be able to come to Alpine, because once upon a time ago, Alpine flourished. Alpine was awesome. And I'm sorry, right now, Alpine, y'all remind me of a brothel. And again, like I stated, I don't mind people hiring felons. Great, because you know what, a lot of them get reformed, and they don't get that second chance. But unfortunately, under Texas law, we cannot. And that's my greatest concern. We look to you for guidance. We look to
Pre-limit
you for example.
time is up.
Right now, you're like an abusive parent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thanks, Chris.
I just have a procedural question. I know I and possibly some others would like to speak to a specific action item, and will there be an opportunity at that time? Is that appropriate?
At that
Make that
time,
comment
on the
then?
next one.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. How you doing?
I'm Jan Woodward. I don't live in Alpine any longer. I live just south of Alpine, but I've been here for 4 decades. And I would just like to say welcome to the new council members and the returning council members. I know that you maybe have heard before that small minds talk about people. Mediocre minds talk about events. Superior minds talk about ideas. I hope this council will focus on what is happening in Alpine, and as the hub of Brewster County, what you do here affects everyone in the county. I hope that you'll make the wisest decisions that you can make. And I hope you'll think about the legacy you may leave. We all miss Rick already, but he left a great legacy. And I hope you'll focus on what you want to leave behind you when your term is up. Will it be a city in turmoil? Will it be decisions made that divide us? Or will it be Alpine moving together with the rest of the county forward?
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else?
Gio, do we have anybody online who wants to make a comment?
Yes, I have both Kirsten Moody and Abby Branch. I'm not sure if they want to make it now or at the agenda item.
I would like to make it.
Gio,
a
can you say
comment
that
in a
again?
bit, yeah.
Yes, Abby Branch. What were you going to say, Abby?
I would like to make a comment later on in the meeting, if that's okay.
Okay, and Kirsten?
Hey, hang on one second, Abby. Let me.
I would too, Gio. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. They'd like to wait till the agenda item comes up.
Okay, Abby. You come off mute. Let's see.
Hi there. I would also like to wait until the agenda item comes up, please.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, Gio?
No, Kirsten Moody would like to make a comment when the agenda item comes up as well.
Okay. That's it.
That's it? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go to presentations, recognitions, and proclamations. I'm gonna start with the mental health awareness. Is anybody here from the mental health? No one here? I'll go ahead and read it anyway. It's proclamation Mental Health Awareness Week Month 2021. And whereas mental health is essential to everyone overall health and well-being. Whereas all Americans face challenges in life that impact their mental health, especially during the pandemic. And whereas prevention is an effective way to reduce the burden of mental health conditions. Whereas there are practical tools that all people can use to improve their mental health and increase resiliency. And whereas mental health conditions are real and prevalent in our nation. And whereas effective treatment, with effective treatment, those individuals with mental health conditions can recover and lead full productive lives. And whereas each business, school, government, agency, healthcare provider, organization, and citizens share the burden of mental health problems and has a responsibility to promote mental health wellness and support prevention and treatment efforts. Therefore, I, Andres A. Ramos, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Mental Health Month in Alpine, Texas. As a mayor, I'm also calling upon the citizens, government agencies, public and private institutions, and businesses, and schools in Alpine to commit to our community to increase awareness and understanding of mental health, steps of our citizens to take for mental health, and need for appropriate and accessible service for all with mental health conditions. Therefore, I attest, Andy Ramos, Mayor of the City of Alpine. And the second one is the Stop the Bleed campaign. Whereas Stop the Bleed is a nationwide campaign to empower individuals to act quickly and save lives. And whereas no matter how rapid the arrival of professional agents, emergency responders, bystanders will always be first on the scene. And whereas a victim can die from blood loss within 5 minutes. Therefore, it is important to quickly stop the blood loss. And whereas bystanders can take simple steps to keep the injured person alive and appropriate medical care is available. Whereas the general public may learn and perform CPR, and it is vital for skills to the aware of proper bleeding and control techniques, including how to use hands, dressings, and tourniquets. And whereas Stop the Bleeding .org is a resource to provide training to stop the bleeding, whose goal is to make our nation more resilient by better preparing the public to save lives if people nearby are severely bleeding. And whereas the City of Alpine is partnered with StopBleeding.org to promote the Stop the Bleeding training to the citizens of Alpine. Free training is offered to the general public. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Andres Ramos, Mayor of the City of Alpine, Texas, on behalf of the community, do hereby recognize May 20th, 2021 as Stop the Bleeding Day in Alpine, Texas, and urge all citizens to be aware of the significant importance that bleeding control practices play in saving lives in our community. In witness, I have hereunto set my hand on this day, 18th May, in the year 2021. Is anybody here to stop bleeding?
Mayor, that was suggested to us by First Flight, who's provided the citywide membership for the airlifting now.
Yeah, we need to find out if they're gonna, where they're gonna be operating at what time. First aid training.
Right.
I think it's crucial to everybody to learn some type of first aid. Okay, it's fine.
I make a motion to move action item.
We're not forgetting.
I'm making the motion. So we go on.
Okay.
I make a motion to move action item number 1 to this time to be followed with action item number 2 from executive session and employees request for section 5.07.
You made the motion, okay. Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? There is no second. to the motion. Okay, now we'll go on to the mayor's report. First of all, I'd like to introduce the three newly elected council members. I'll start with my right, Judy Stokes. And
I am Sarah
Sarah Penny.
Jared
Jared Johnson. I'd like to welcome aboard. Jared's been here before. He was a former mayor. So we have some experience on the council and we have a great cross section of the city present right now. And it's like it was said earlier, you need to know the city charter, what it contains and what your abilities are within it. Also, I urge that everybody on the council, because I do a lot of it, I drive around, check the streets out and whatnot. And I'll send the reports to the city manager. Okay. So I urge everybody to do that, get associated with who they are, constituents. Very important. They're the ones that elect. Okay. And now I've got two presentations to two former city councilmen. Ramon Leos, 4 years, 2 terms in office as councilman of Ward 2, and also Lucy Escobedo, 4 years, 2 terms of office for council Ward 4. Y'all will come forward. And also, let's not forget, that's not on the agenda, but we've got Councilman Stevens, who was on Zoom when he made a motion to retire. So. Okay, this first one is going to go to Lucy Escobedo, Alpine City Council Certificate of Honor and Recognition presented to Lucy Escobedo, whereas Lucy Escobedo has made significant efforts to improve the city of Alpine communities in Ward 4. Her 2 years of service award on the 17th day of November 17th in the year 2000. They're a little late because we had the pandemic going on then, so we didn't forget that. Lucy, congratulations, man. The next one goes to Ramon Olivas, Alpine City Council Certificate of Honor and Recognition presented to Ramon Olivas. Whereas Ramon Olivas has made significant efforts to improve the city of Alpine communities in Ward 2 through his 4 years of service, awarded on the 17th day of November 17th in the year 2000. Come on, congratulations. And please, but not please, last. Who's gonna make the motions? Alpine City Council Certificate of Honor and Recognition presented to Rick Stevens. Whereas Rick Stevens has made significant efforts to improve the city of Alpine communities in Ward 5 through his 7 years of service, awarded the 10th day of May in the year 2021. He was the most tenured council person in the city. Congratulations, sir.
Mayor, I just take half a minute to say thank you very much for the recognition, and now I have something for my grandkids to prove that I was here.
We can remind them we'll be around still.
And second of all, congrats to all the newly appointed city council members. And I look forward to hearing some really good successful stories for the benefit of all residents of Alpine.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, so we'll go to city attorney reports.
The only report I have is an update on the Alpine Independent School District project update. Once I supplied the authority that the attorney requested and told them that the city was gonna follow the procedures by TCEQ, they have submitted the money to get started on the hot tab. So I believe that issue is a non-issue at this point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any more reports? That's it. Okay, let's go city manager. I think you've got a few here.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, I've got a few slides to share this evening. And then we've got Lorena to share with us a little bit about human resources too. So without further ado, let's jump down to kind of our COVID update. And just for our new council members, last year we had 4 or 5 slides that we went through relative to COVID. And as more and more people become vaccinated and more and more caseload, we've kind of slimmed down the amount of slides, but we still like to look at this one every couple weeks. And it's really gives us a couple key points of data. I mean, what's the spread look like? So that infection rate, as well as the daily new cases. And then most importantly, the vaccination side. So we're up getting close to 50% have been received their vaccinations. I do know between the hospital, the clinic, Highland Drug, there's a real good supply out there here locally. So if you hear of any citizens that are concerned about accessibility to the vaccine, feel free to direct them here to City Hall. We'll walk them through some of the processes. From that, obviously, the American Rescue Plan Act, or the second major stimulus act, was passed in March. And as we've been sorting through what does that portion mean to the city, and a couple of meetings ago, I had talked a little bit about the $350 billion that's going to be going to the states, the counties, the cities, tribal governments, territories. We're getting more clarity from the federal and the state government on how those dollars can be used. So really wanted to share a couple of these key bullet points. Certainly, how we support public health expenditures is critical. Addressing some of the negative economic impacts, replacing lost public sector revenue. For us in the city, most of our lost revenue related early on to the airport, but the airport has their own fund that those items will be addressed through. Certainly premium pay for essential workers. This next bullet point, investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. What we're seeing from the federal government in how it's sourcing down to the states is a real key focus on what we can do with our water infrastructure, what we can do with our wastewater infrastructure, as well as broadband internet. I think broadband internet is getting probably the most attention because what we've seen is as kids go home to educate in a home environment, if they don't have quality broadband, it's hard to do a Google Classroom or a Zoom classroom. And so I think this is certainly a very specific need across the US, but also in our community. I have heard from Big Bend Telephone Company. They are going to be looking at some of these grant monies too in the application. I've always thought that, Alpine is pretty fiber rich. It goes back to 2015 when the city went through that RFP, and we've got fiber within the community. Through Big Bend Telephone, the county followed up with that, school district and Saw Ross have continued to add to that portfolio. And then of course, AT&T, TDS, and then we've got 2 fixed base wireless solutions. With that being said, that impacts Alpine, but as we get outside of the city and we certainly look at this portion of Texas, there is significant gaps in coverage. And so glad to see that happen. Relative to what's going to come up on the council agenda in the next couple meetings will be a significant sewer expenditure, not just replacing the one aerator, but actually replacing both. And so we're working through that. Scott, Megan, and myself later this week, as well as Marcy, on how we ensure that doesn't come out of the city coffers, but actually gets addressed through this particular grant. As always, ineligible uses out there, these are things that we certainly want to keep our eyes on. I know in the audit readout, we talked quite a bit about the pension fund. Certainly, our city is fully funded on our pension. So not something that we are certainly concerned about, but something we want to watch for. Ultimately, what this means for Alpine, we're a non-entitlement unit of government. We're under 50,000. So we're not designated that. The non-entitlements means we're going to have to work back through the state, similar to the CREF Coronavirus Relief Fund, or that first fund where we file through TDM and make sure we're submitting things as they expect. State of Texas certainly can regulate that usage, though we do know our core projects center around water, wastewater, as well as facilities. When we think about what we're doing over there at the old Sunshine House, old schoolhouse, in providing another venue for citizens to be able to spread out as they come do transactions with the city. And as I mentioned earlier, so I didn't mention this earlier, but the $1.309, that's what has been designated for Alpine. So we'll be able to work up to that cap. Occasionally we get calls into City Hall requesting how specifically are you planning on spending that 1.3. We wanted to make sure that folks know we didn't get a $1.3 million check. We have to fall within the confines of the grant dollars, submit back and get reimbursements. And then of course, the airports will have $8 billion in their own funds to deal with. City of Alpine, the Casparis Municipal Airport, we're listed to receive about 13,000 in specific airport usage. So we see we've got Abel out there now as our supervisor at the airport, and he's that's not 13,000 just for you. No, but Abel, we really are fortunate to have someone there who allows us to zero in on those specific expenditures and what we want to do. Moving forward, I thought, relative to some of the ideas and ideology around the broadband deployments that are going to come as a part of the relief fund efforts, I think it's important with our new council to kind of level set on where we're at from an IT perspective. 2015, we had gone through the update with our phones and internet here through the city offices. We've just recently renewed that contract, or extended that contract, and gone from 100 meg of service spread across our offices up to 1 gig of service. We also went through and looked at several of our users or employees, and many had multiple desk phone, cell phone. So we did a lot of retraction of that. I myself personally just work off of a mobile device, and that ends up saving the city. So we've got several employees that are moving more to that mobile only device, which has been a good solution. We also continue to work vigorously on our website development. Using that is not just a primary source of messaging, but a primary source of ability for people to interact with the city. So when you want to put in a new tap for water or sewer, you can go through and pull down the documents to execute and then bring them in. And our team at City Hall is already one step ahead. Scheduling of parks, our baseball teams and softball teams, the junior programs are extremely important within the community, and giving them the abilities to schedule online has helped mitigate some of the issues in the field. And so we're certainly excited about that. Also, our Zoom integration with the meetings. I mean, Abel would stand up there with a camera, videotape, and then convert to a movie file, which we'd upload to YouTube. Now with Zoom, everything just populates. And we're certainly getting more and more hits on our website from individuals coming back, looking at previous meetings. And then finally, really the software as a service, or the SaaS, information that's out there. We're migrating to NCORT from a software tool for our municipal court. That's important because right now when folks, they can tender a payment online, but they can't see exactly how much they owe. That creates some level of consternation, especially when you get 200 phone calls that come in over a 2 or 3 day period. So the implementation of NCORT is going to allow people to go in, look to see how much they owe, then they can tender their payment, and that will be a real step in the right direction. We've also got the ticket writers for our police department that will seamlessly integrate through into our software system. So these are types of things that we're looking at from a city perspective and ensure that we're not just out spending money on technology, but we're spending money on solutions that allow citizens to engage with us in an easier fashion. Any questions on the IT?
No, but I've got one on the coronavirus.
Sure.
How many active cases do we have in Alpine?
Off the top of my head, I did not look at that number this morning.
Day before yesterday, they were at 16.
16,
Yes,
so it's gone up.
Yes.
I just want to urge folks that, we did have some issues with Johnson & Johnson, but here in Alpine, we have the Madera, and there's been very few reactions off it. I mean, I immediately got my vaccinations, actually both of them, and very mild reaction, sore shoulder, that was about it. Okay, so other people might have reacted a little bit more, but, we're not immune, but it'll slow it down. So I'm urging folks and I can't force anybody to get it, it's on your own, to please get vaccinated. I know that a lot of, we're not wearing our masks today, and a lot of that has to be contributed to the vaccinations that kind of slowed it down. So very important for our community. We're a small community, and this thing can spread like wildfire, like it did back in May during the graduations. So that's something I think that city manager, myself, and other folks are looking at, the graduation parties and all this, because it kicked off and it just spiraled after that. So we've got to be, aware that, continue to just be safe out there, all the same. On IT, Karen alluded about bringing more business into Alpine. I think with the doggone broadband being expanded now it's been talked around for 15 years or better. And now it's actually coming into fruition. That'll bring also more business into Alpine, because you can readily work from home, your home base be New York, Dallas, or whatever. But people can comfortably be at your home and work there, and I think be more productive employees and save the business a lot of money in rental fees, insurance, and things like that. And so I hope that we can get it updated and bring in more business with broadband.
All right. Moving forward, one of the items that came up at our last council meeting relative to the city manager report, when we were talking about performance bonds, one of the pieces that we shared is somewhat how we structure these contracts when we do self-insure. So this is really the contract. It's actual live piece part with Jarrett Dirt Works. And something I shared with council is that, we walk through a progression of steps with milestone billing, and we don't submit payment back to Jarrett Dirt Work until they hit those specific milestones. Lance goes out with Eddie, reviews, signs off on it. That's what tenders the payment. So I know that was a request from council at the last meeting to come back and just show an example on what this type of billing looks. So we don't have a lot of work that falls into this category, but when we do, it certainly provides assurance from the city perspective. Moving forward, certainly with new council, wanted to use this time to address the boards and commissions that we have out there. After recent election, each council member has an opportunity to either fill or refill if the person in that role wants to carry forward. We also have some additional openings that are out there that need to be filled too. The chair person is structured from a city perspective. Council structured that council does appoint those chairs. And I think that's an important piece of it. I will give, a big shout out to Kirsten Moody, who runs our Parks Board as the chairman there. She's always highly organized, working through the setting up of the agenda, the specific items, and then handing them back to the city council or the council member that she's working with. So, and I know she's on the call this evening. We also have a vacancy on our Animal Advisory Board. So Maria Curry was the council designee on that, and the council designee on the Animal Advisory Board chairs for. So the council is going to have to select amongst the 5 of you someone to fill that role. Jennifer stressed with me, please fill it quickly. There are items that are queued up. One is, and we'll talk about this in a minute, an update to the feral cat ordinance. It had a first reading last meeting, but we need to have a chair in place and somebody to sponsor the completion of that ordinance. And then, last kind of bullet point here, a box here, is around the TOMA training, and something that we were talking about ensuring that as we've got a new council, we've got new boards and commission members in the summer, ensuring that we do that workshop here where we go through the Texas Open Meeting Act for the benefit of all the members. The next 2 slides, they certainly were included in the packet, and they show, who the current designees are, and then where the openings are, who the chairperson is. I won't go through all these independently because they were in the packet, but this is one of those, and I'll just share with you Eric's opinion, because I've been working with the boards for 5.5 to 6 years. It is important that the people that raise their hand to be on the board are interested in engaging and spending time on it, and that they don't feel like they're doing it just as a favor, right? Or I'm doing this because somebody asked me to. Ultimately, what happens is 3 or 4 months into it, they don't put the time, effort, and energy. And when we think about the criticality of what we have with planning and zoning, what we have with our hotel occupancy tax committee, Jerry Johnson is one who sat on that committee and understands there was some depth of work there and some thought around what we were trying to do. And I know when we get to our Animal Advisory Board, that person chairing the board needs active participation. So, my thoughts are it's important that people that are asked that they definitely are wanting to serve on those boards too. We do have a nice application out on the web that people can pull down and go for. So any questions on the boards before I go into the ordinance piece of it? On the ordinances, and we included that in the packet, and the spreadsheet in there was the revisions in 2020 and then the revisions in 2021. I think what stood out in my mind, and I'll pop down that slide and come back. If you look at 2020, you can see when the pandemic started, right? So we're charging along. If you look at that left column, February, March, April, and then all of a sudden, there's nothing in May, 1 in June, 1 in July. And then it started kind of picking back up in August. Certainly the pandemic even impacted our governing body, because we were thinking about a lot of, the council was really thinking about a lot of other things. What we tried to do from a staff perspective is assign a staff member to help on particular ordinances. But generally speaking, I mean, the way our governance is set up is, we are a 3, legislative, executive, and judicial 3-legged stool. So the legislative body and the creation of the ordinances really are bestowed upon our city council. With that being said, my perspective has always been from a staff, we're going to help, but we do need the sponsorship of council members. The outdoor lighting, parks usage, feral cat revisions are probably the top three right now. Laura Gold, who's been a tremendous advocate and asset in the participation in the forming of some of the workshops relative to the ordinance on lighting, outdoor lighting. So, we'll definitely need council members to raise their hands quickly and start the process with that. One of the other questions that comes in is folks will look on our website. We've got all of our list of ordinances out there. We input to Muni Code usually somewhere between every 3 to 6 months. But if you pass an ordinance today and somebody's out looking for it next week, the updated version is just not going to be there. It does, they charge us a base fee plus add-ons. So we try to get a little bundle of them before we submit them and get that updated. But we are working to try to keep it as as up to date as possible. Okay. The first slide here had the 2020 ordinances, and then 21 we've been certainly pretty active, and like I mentioned earlier, we've got a few there that are going to need attention of council in relatively short order. So any questions relative to the ordinances?
I have a question about the boards and commissions. You mentioned a moment ago that it's not the council's responsibility to appoint the chairperson.
It is.
Okay. I misunderstood.
Okay. Yep. Council, that was set up a few years back. Council's discretion to appoint the chair. Okay. Lorena.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lorena. As we see the next slide, we're growing, so we're implementing new strategies to bring more people to the city. We have used tools that has been used in the past, which is working right now, like posting the jobs on the website, Big Ben Radio, the Workforce Commission website, the TML Texas Municipal League, and also I participate in a virtual job fair. We are in a remote area, so it's kind of like hard to bring people down here, but the website is working wonders. We have hired, and I will talk a little bit more later. In the next slide, please. We are establishing a new onboarding program. Once again, strategies that were used in the past that we're bringing back again. So we have the new hire. With the pandemic, we have to kind of improvise with DocuSign. But filling out the paperwork, getting all those TML training that are required for new hires, and going through the handbook, the policy handbook for the employees. So, next slide. From January to present, we have hired 12 people. That without counting the lifeguards, and I will talk about it a little bit more. We still have around 7 openings in the city-wise. I encourage everybody to apply. We need people, and as we are growing and implementing new staff, or approaching more stuff like in the streets and the water department. So we need the people. We are required, the next slide, we are required by law, the House Bill 3834, to complete the cybersecurity every year, and also the ethics training, ethical behavior for local government. We finally did. The city completed. I reported, and we are good to go in that sense. And like I said, we have to do it every year. The Alpine pool, we're gonna open on May 29 if everything goes as planned. We have 12 lifeguards that apply when I turn in my, my slides. So far, we have 13 and one person came today to get an application for a lifeguard. So hopefully we will have 14 people. Their training and certification will be next week. I have to thank Blake. He will be our lifeguard, Blake Billy, lifeguard manager. He's been reaching out to students, that were in school with him, and we've been having a good turnaround. The parks are working in the pool to get it ready for next week. So hopefully, on the 29th, the city pool will be open. And that first week of June, we're gonna have, people can reserve for private parks as well.
Lorena, I think one of the other things that's important for council to realize is, as you were forming the plan, and Lorena, you just did a fantastic job with the recruiting of the lifeguards and working back with the parks team and getting the pool open. But I think also working back with the library in the school district, the elementary school on passes. So the library does a reads program, and Lorena was able to get a different color band for the library this year. And when kids read so many books, they get a band to get into the pool. And that different color band is significant because that's a notifier to our lifeguards to help encourage. And we know that peer encouragement is significant. So thank you for Lorena for doing that. And then Earl Bryan over at the elementary school worked back to Lorena and has bought several hundred passes for the kiddos to jump in and enjoy the pool after being closed for a year. So anyway, I thank you, Lorena, for the work on that.
So it was a team effort between finance department, parks department, everybody's pitching in ideas, and it was a team effort. That's all for me. Any questions?
Compliment you, because I think this is the first time forever we've had an abundance of lifeguards. We've always struggled to get lifeguards, and there are more folks who can't go swimming because of that. So I want to compliment you and the team for doing a great job.
Thank you.
And that's sweet. That's key.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorena.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on to public hearings. Public hearings to obtain citizens' views, comments on fee applications totaling approximately $2 million in text dot transportation alternatives that have been set aside. ESA program funds for sidewalks and related infrastructure improvements in multiple areas throughout the city. The city requires matching funds for all three projects. If awarded, will be $400,000. Do we have anybody to speak on? Any comments?
No comments were received on my end, Mayor.
None, okay. Then let's go ahead and move on to the consent agenda.
I would like to move items 3, 4, and 5 into action items.
They leave the consent agenda. And I know we're new, so we're.
Okay.
Okay, consent agenda, minutes, financial reports, common written reports, board appointments, etc. Notice to the public, the following items are of a routine administrative nature. The council has been furnished with background and support material on each item and/or has been discussed at a previous meeting. All items will be acted upon by one vote without being discussed separately unless requested by council member, in which event the item or items will immediately be withdrawn for individual consideration in its normal sequence after the items not requiring separate discussion have been acted upon. The remaining items will be adopted by one vote.
Okay, I would like to move items 3, 4, and 5 into action items to be discussed and voted upon separately.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes for items 1 and 2. I need a motion for this, please.
I'll make a motion to approve items 1 and 2 on consent.
Okay, and I need a second. Motion's been made, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, then we'll go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll go to information or discussion items. Discussion of city streets. And that's gonna be Ms. Cheney.
Yes, I was
First,
discussing,
we have to do 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, we're gonna move to the,
I want to move it to 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, when they come out of the consent agenda, they go to the top of the action item, top of the action. So we would go information and discussion next, and then down to the action.
Thanks, that's the 341. Okay. Also, person 10 on
Yes.
streets.
On the streets, I was discussing with Mr. Molinar about the repairs on the streets. I was riding my bicycle throughout Ward 3 and throughout the city. And that was one of my main concerns and why I decided to ride my bicycle. And he did inform me of the street repairs that had taken place, and he gave me a schedule as well of the street repairs that are going to be taking place. He also gave me a schedule for dirt work, and I enjoyed visiting with him. He has a map and all the information, so if any of the citizens would like to be informed on what is taking place, this is very, very important. And I think that he's done a good job explaining this to me, and I think that he would do the same with anyone else who wanted to reach out to him. The other item was the city street sign. I was informed by a citizen that there was no street sign on Peachtree Street. So I went to visit with Mr. Molinar once again, and he informed me that he has ordered the street sign and that the citizen can feel now that if they are to call EMS, that they will be able to be located. So as soon as that street sign arrives, he will then place the street sign where it needs to be on, and it will be Peachtree Road, not Peachtree Street, which used to be Quail Run. And, you know, and going around in that area, we have Peachtree Landing, we have Peachtree Circle. So I was asking him if there was any way that we could call it something other than Peach, but he did inform me that the sign had already been ordered and purchased. And therefore, when it does arrive, that sign will then be placed in its proper place.
Yeah, it gets a little confusing back in that section.
A lot of peaches.
Okay, anything else? Let's go on to action items to be accompanied by a brief statement of facts, including what facts are coming from the actual action items limited to up to 10 per meeting after being called upon by the mayor and mayor pro tem. Citizens are required to state their names and the ward in which they reside. Order to be given to the citizens of Alpine and those who own business or property in the city. Individuals who do not live in or own business or property in the city limits of Alpine will be allowed to speak at their time available. Get a little tongue tied, my sinus have been just kicking up, so forgive me. Okay, let's go to items 3 and 4 then.
It'll be items 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, 5, I'm sorry. Okay.
Councilwoman Tandy pulled them out, so
Okay.
she'll
The
address.
approval of Glenn Grimes for Animal Advisory Board, representing the Humane Society position. I think I make a motion that we accept this.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, it's been multiple seconds on it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? Raise your right hand. Okay, unanimous. Ms. Grimes is on the Animal Advisory Board. Thank you all very much. Okay, item number 4.
Item number 4, approval of Rick Stevens for P and Z at large position. I wanted to discuss this because I know that the P and Z meets on May the 24th. And I understand that, I tried to pull the minutes up for this and the minutes were not available to me. So therefore, I think that we should act upon this item after they have met as a group. I just feel that they should be able to meet prior to us making a motion on a chairman.
May I ask for what reason we're asking them to first?
Well, because of the fact that, well, I don't have the minutes, so I don't know, I was wanting to look to see why, if they were going to have some discussion about the person that was going to be appointed at large.
But it is the council's responsibility to hire.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
is.
not to hire, excuse me.
Yes, it is. But I feel that they should be able to have that discussion prior to us appointing someone.
Mayor, you'll want to have a motion to discuss it any further.
So we'll make a motion on
I make a motion that they should be able to discuss.
it. Well,
I make a motion that we
just a minute.
discuss.
The motion is for Mr. Rick Stevens with PNC at large. Now you can make a motion to table it.
I make a motion that we table it.
Okay, the motion to make the table item number 4. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, motion been made and second. Any discussion?
As I noted, it is the council's responsibility to appoint. I don't feel that needs to go to PNC first.
But the motion on hand is focused to.
I understand that. You just said that there was any discussion, so I once again, I just.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, item number 5.
Well, I think that's.
There it is. We go together. You still have to make a motion for the 2 separate items.
I make a motion that we table the approval of Rick Stevens for chairman of P and Z.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion been made. Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. Okay, the motion carries. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Just as a point relative to planning and zoning, there is not a chairman of that commission right now. So the last meeting was a struggle to get through. So my suggestion would be to make some decisions on getting a chairman in that really quickly.
Right. Okay. And let's see, where we go. Okay, now back to discussion and consider taking appropriate action. Let's discuss.
I think if people want to talk before we do something, is that right? Am I right?
Get make a motion.
To discuss it.
And then second. I mean, discuss it after the second.
I can make a motion I want to make.
Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion to terminate the contract of Eric Zimmer and Cynthia Solomon.
Okay, there's,
To be as worded.
what's that?
Doesn't the motion have to be as worded in the agenda?
Yes, it does, but it says right here, it says take appropriate action on the contract.
And she's changing into terminate, so doesn't it have to be the language that's on the.
Read what's on the agenda.
I'd like to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action regarding the employment contract most recent evaluation of Eric Zimmer and Cynthia Solomon. I'd like to terminate both.
Now, do we have a second on this?
Second.
Okay, motion made, second, discussion now. Please, ma'am, Karen, press the podium.
Hey, again, my name is Karen Cantrell from Ward 3. I've heard rumors about a personal vendetta on this thing. I don't know what the reasons are, but we're here to discuss them. So I'd like to know, what are the reasons and who do you have to replace these people? Is my question. These people right here have done a good job. I don't have any question. I've been here for every council meeting. Where have you been? You've not been here. You've not been to any council meetings, Zoom or otherwise. Then you come in here and this is your big motion. This sounds like a personal grievance. And you're not supposed to take city council to satisfy a personal grievance. You're supposed to help the people in your ward. And do your people in your ward feel like this? Did you canvass and find out? No. So this is, pardon my French, BS. Sounds like a personal vendetta. I stand with City Manager Eric Zimmer and City Secretary Cynthia Salas. They've done wonderful things for this city. You haven't been in any council meetings, and then you just show up. So I don't think you got a dog in this hunt, other than a personal grievance. Thank you all for listening.
Discussion.
John Schmidt running for the Ward 4, and I understand where you're coming from.
Oh, you don't?
I do.
Okay, there's no dialogue. Okay.
As far as whether or not, whatever, fact of the matter remains that Mr. Zimmerman was fired, let go, whatever wording you want to do, and then rehired, from my understanding. Ms. Salas does have a felony, and under your Texas code, which is subsection 141.10I, A4, no felon can hold a public position. Now, is Miss Cynthia great? I can't say whether or not she is. I can't comment on it. I haven't been around, so I mean, but what I can comment on is that you are to uphold standing. And now with the nepotism that I'm seeing, because Mrs. Salas' sister is here, how are you gonna actually vote? Because now Ward 3 isn't being fairly represented because Ms. Salas' sister is a representative for Ward 3. Or 2, excuse me. Okay? So there's a wording and it's called moral turpitude. Like I said, y'all gonna continue to be the abusive parents and abuse the power that you have. Or do we start making Alpine better the way it used to be, the way it can be? Well, excuse me, not used to be, because some things out there I get real. But I mean, let's progress into this century, and instead of a stalemate, let's get, to where people can actually feel free to apply for positions and not have to worry about nepotism. And if y'all need to stand by the law.
Okay, I'm gonna make a comment on that. Mr. Zimmer, for the record, was not fired or terminated back in 17. He resigned for personal reasons. Okay, so just to set the record straight.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, any more comments? Yes, sir, Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council, for this opportunity. My name is Chris Ruggia. I live in Ward 3. My wife and I lived in Alpine for just over 26 years, and for the last since 2009, I've contracted with the city to help with tourism promotion. So I'm not part of the city staff, but I am in a position to observe how they work with each other and how the city manager works with them. The action items include a review of performance, and since I report directly to the city manager, that's the only performance I can directly speak to, but I'm happy to give you a firsthand report. Some of you may remember when Eric first took the job, financial mismanagement had left the finance director indicted the previous city manager fired and the city's financial situation in complete disarray, Eric saw the city through that crisis and introduced strict new financial controls with the help of our new finance director, Megan Antrim. And the fact that Alpine is now in an excellent financial situation is thanks to Eric's leadership and Megan's skill and hard work. And thank you. And when Eric returned to the position for a second time, the city staff had imploded from conflict around the city manager who had followed Eric. Almost every department head position was vacant at the time, but Eric quickly recruited and hired to fill the leadership void. He established team building workshops and ongoing meetings. And the current leadership team is highly effective. And as you've heard in the human resources report, they work exceedingly well together across all the different departments. I've been very impressed with that, my observations. I've reported 3 different city managers since I started helping the city with tourism promotion and 1 interim. And of the 4, Eric is by far the best at the job. He expects a lot from the people who work for him. I work very hard, but I have to strive to keep up with all the good ideas that come from Eric for tourism, and I see them for all the other departments as well. He leads by example. He sets a tone of professionalism, positivity, and of respect for everyone, regardless of their role, regardless of their relationship to himself or to the city. He leads with a strong sense of mission about service to the residents of Alpine, their interests, and their future. As I hear you are actually considering depriving Alpine citizens of the skill and talent that he brings to the table, I feel that the people you took an oath to represent deserve to know your reasons, to know exactly why this action is necessary. And they need to hear a clear and convincing argument as to why those reasons outweigh throwing the city administration into turmoil and essentially throwing 6 months of salary, our tax dollars, that could actually benefit us. And so this is a big ask that you're putting on the citizens. And so really would like to hear clear and convincing argument. Thank you.
Stuart Ramser, Ward 5, Ward 5, and I would like to just second everything that Chris Ruccia just said. As usual, very eloquently summarized a lot of the key points. I will not rehash all of that, but just say that that was all 100% true. I think this is a very rash decision. My comments come from working with the city for the last 10 years in some capacity, either as public producer of Viva Big Bend Music Festival, or for 5 years I was the tourism director, which part of that time was reporting directly to Eric. As Chris alluded to, there was a lot of turmoil and change during a lot of churn in the job, and that was always problematic and not beneficial for the city. Eric's brought a lot of stability and also very professional, most dedicated, thorough city manager that I interacted with. And he has a business background, which is, he's not in the government game, but he knows business. He applies that as rules and principles to benefiting Alpine. I think that's been very beneficial. Can't please everyone all the time. It's a tough role. And that's one of those things that he has to kind of press through, have his principles, and do the best job he can, and not be swayed by all the talk that goes on. And he has, I think, been very dedicated and for the benefit of Alpine in general, even if it's been tough decisions. I personally have run small businesses over the years. I've had to step in, meet new people, as some of the new city council members here tonight are having to do. And I've always found that like preconceived notions are not always accurate. And I've always benefited from giving people the benefit of the doubt, working with them, understanding where they're coming from, making a decision later. So I'm done. All right, so you get the point. I'm fully in support of Eric Zimmer continuing as city manager. It would be making changes for change's sake. It would be a wise decision. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, sir. Stevens.
Rick Stevens, Ward 5, thanks for the opportunity to address council. You have a important responsibility relative to fulfilling your obligation, the contract that you recommend to city manager. It requires that you do performance appraisal on an annual basis. The most recent one was completed, and across council sitting at the bench at the time gave Eric an excellent and outstanding performance appraisal. As one who's been responsible for human resources for a Fortune 50 company, I fairly well understand employment law, including here in the state of Texas, with having several thousand employees here in the state. I think that council has an obligation or responsibility to, one, understand the contract. Second, to ensure that goals and objectives are understood by those that you appoint. You have a responsibility to provide that feedback back to them. So my view, should you take this action tonight, in addition to the 6-month severance that the contract requires, you find yourself in a situation of additional liability. I just think you all want to understand that, because you are putting taxpayer dollars, residents of the city, the 6,000 people who pay taxes, who just got a property bill that went up dramatically, you're putting those dollars at risk. So in my opinion, while you may have issues, you may want to have a different direction you want to go, you have an obligation to really understand what's going on in your taxpayers' dollars and the decisions you make tonight. I would recommend you not make a decision tonight. Instead, certainly have a discussion with what your expectations are as the council, and those discussions with the city manager going forward. Relative to the discussion about the solace, we've gone through this from a council standpoint a number of times, including discussions with the Secretary of State regarding her past conviction, and discussions. The Secretary of State of the state of Texas came back and says she was eligible and suitable for being the city secretary. So she choose to take action based upon a perception that she is not eligible to serve. You will find yourself in a situation of violating the state of Texas, find yourself in a position of having to expend resources to defend a position that I do not believe is tenable. I've served with all these individuals, find them very professional, very support them. Ultimately, the decision is yours, but I think you want to consider tonight that you may have thought.
Yes, ma'am. You're next.
Welcome to the new board members. Council members. I've been on one of the advisory boards with Eric Zimmer, and he was fair-minded. We never spoke about anything that wasn't on the agendas. He stepped in and took the place of for a few times pre-COVID, when the chairman decided she didn't want to be chairman any longer. Everything was orderly and questions were all answered. He was always prepared. He gave me kind of an idea that I wanted to serve on the board as well. So I have volunteered to be to serve on the environmental board, which has not had a chance to meet yet, but I've had several meetings with Scott Perry and Adelina, and met often. Again, COVID has interrupted a lot of things, but I didn't want to miss this chance to say something about Mr. Zimmer as a person. I can only speak to my experiences personally that I've had with him as being on the board, but I also, as a board member, advisory board member, he took me to some of the workshops when in Fort Stockton about the water shortage, possible water shortage in the future, which is probably going to be something that we really need to look at later on. I also have known him as a parent because he was in some parenting classes that I attended and was part of. He has a wonderful family, which I came to know his 2 sons, wonderful people. And I just feel that you should know the people that represent you and have a witness to that by those who've been with them. to talk to them, spend time with them, know their family, know their children, know their values. And that I can speak to. I think he's ethical, of the highest value. I know he's very professional because I've watched him. So whatever comes of this, I hope that you take the time to talk to him, to listen to him, because I think he's done an excellent job, will continue to do so. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Oscar Coles, Ward 5. I've been in this community for years and have been at City Hall on a lot of issues and have watched a lot of things that didn't go well, but I've also seen a lot of progress. And I can truly define tonight, a lot of us know what special interests are and public interests are. This is where the dividing line is tonight. We have no room here for special interests or somebody else's vendetta, revenge modes or whatever. We need to move forward. I really do appreciate our city manager, Cynthia Salas, and the council. Either we work together or we continue to go into a jihad in every meeting. I strongly believe, and I have firm support of Chief Martin in the police department, and I will continue to watch this very closely and write about it and stand up for what's right, not for special interests or personal vendettas. I know the meetings that I've been here, I know people that were terminated for very good reasons of no transparency, no accountability. You all read my name on the paper, and I'm here again today, hoping that we can move forward as a people, as a council, with no personal vendettas, and making up somebody else's dirty work tonight. Thank you.
Call from Ward 5. How many votes does it take to have a petition for a recall?
I'd like to say something
Yes,
about
Anderson.
the nepotism. I came here in 2007. I went to work. I went to work for the city. All right, so my name is Karen Cantrell from Ward 3. I came here in 2007 to work for the city in 2013. I don't know anybody on the city, okay? I don't know anybody in town at that time. And I was given the job working at the recycling center. And I was treated very fairly. And I lasted 3 years. That was because my last manager was a piece of, but anyway. But it's a good job. And it was not because of nepotism that I got it. And I did hard work. And the people out there now, it's not because of nepotism, it's because they want to do the job. Thank you for listening again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
There's also Abby Branch and Kirsten Moody.
Okay.
And another gentleman.
I want to know why the court enforcement guys are doing court enforcement. I'm paying $50 in fine for tires on my trailer.
Okay, please address the council, sir.
This is a point of order.
Yeah, and this,
I know, Eric,
we're not,
I'm
you're off the subject. We're on another issue right now. So,
Okay, I can talk whatever I want.
no, sir, no, sir, you
you're not.
can't. No, sir, you can't.
Okay.
Okay. If we had on the agenda,
Well,
then you may do it. Okay. Okay, got Kristen.
I think we've got Abby Branch first.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby Ward Branch. I am an Alpine High School graduate, class of 1991. I was born in Alpine. I own a home, historical home in Zone 5. My parents both, they own businesses in Alpine. My father, Bob Ward, my sister. But I signed up to speak tonight just because so many great things are happening in Alpine thanks to Eric Zimmer. And I have known our city manager, Eric Zimmer, since at least the 6th grade when he went to Alpine Junior High School with me. And we were members of the Methodist Church in MYF. I know him personally, but I have also worked with him professionally. I have worked with him quite a bit over the last several years in events, tourism events for Alpine, but specifically in creating the Alpine Historical Association and revitalizing historic Alpine Inc. Eric is instrumental in creating the Hispanic Heritage Tour and so many other great things that are going on in Alpine. He is responsive. If I email, text, schedule a meeting, he's always available. He's incredibly knowledgeable, but most importantly, he is passionate about Alpine, our current events, our history, our future. And I just wanted to tell you how truly lucky we are to have him. So thank you.
Who else do we have?
Kirsten Moody.
Kirsten Moody. Okay.
Hi, thank y'all. I'm Kirsten Moody and I'm in Ward 5. And I'm also the chair of the City Parks Board. I've been doing that for about almost 3.5 years. And I just wanted to share with y'all that Eric is one of the hardest working people that I have ever worked with. When I contact him about parks projects, which is several times a month, he responds quickly, always thoughtfully with extra information, things for me to think about. He's always receptive to new ideas that we bring him from the board, even though he's always sure to set expectations for us by reminding me that city resources are not unlimited, even for good things like parks. And I wanted to give y'all an example of the way that Eric works, just to be specific. So there's a plot of land, maybe some of y'all are familiar with it. It's about a city block over in the southeast part of town, close to La Casita, that was designated as Pueblo Nuevo Park many, many years ago. It's never been developed into a park that the neighborhood needs. And the neighborhood has been repeatedly promised that, and it just has never happened. So our Parks Board has wanted from the very beginning to develop that park, but we had resigned ourselves really to sort of doing it piecemeal, a little bit here, a little bit the next year, a little, because we know that we are not a rich town. We never have been. We don't have oil money. We were going to just chip away at it. But it was Eric who was really bold in coming in from the beginning and saying that we were going to do right by that neighborhood, and we were going to make it a real park right from the beginning, not piecemeal it, because that would never come together properly. We're going to make it something that's an asset to the neighborhood and to the rest of Alpine, and he figured out a way to fund it over several years through existing city funds and through the use of grants, which we're very lucky that he also hired a woman named Marcy Tuck Havlick that is a very good grant writer. And we're about to hear about this grant for Pueblo Nuevo that I thought was going to happen never, in the sense that it has. At the end of this month, we're looking forward to hearing that in most likelihood, it has been granted. It's been recommended by staff. We found out just late last week. And that's a several $100,000 project that the city will pay for, has already budgeted for smaller amounts over 3 years, and in a responsible way going to actually have a park for that neighborhood that has deserved it for years and been promised it for years. So let's see, and it was Eric's leadership that kicked off really that whole project. I just want to close by saying that when I talked to Eric during the time that he was thinking about coming back to Alpine to be city manager for the second time, I asked him why he wanted to come back and do it, like what his thought process was there. And he told me, I don't even know if he remembers this, but he told me that he had realized that being able to help Alpine, which was in most ways his hometown, by bringing in all the experience he'd had over the rest of his career, was really the most meaningful job that he'd had, and that he would like to do it again, even though it meant being away from his family more than he would like. Obviously, I'm sure you all know that his children and his wife, I know you know because I've seen it all over social media, are in Albuquerque, and he has sacrificed a great deal to come down and help us through these last few years.
3-minute time frame is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else?
I just want to chime in real quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Kirsten was saying about his family being in Albuquerque. I have talked to his wife several times in and out, where I'm trying to track him down. And she comments that when he's over there, they hardly ever see him. So she's like, I don't even know why he comes home, because he's always behind closed doors and working.
You know, so I mean, we need to put out there that just because he's gone, he's always available, always 24/7. You know, and his wife can let you know that she doesn't see him a lot when he's in Albuquerque.
Anybody else?
Mayor, I would like to speak.
Yes, sir.
I do reserve the right to speak a little bit later. Before I address what I wanted to say, I wanted to answer some of Ms. Valenzuela's questions. Number one. If I can just speak, Mr. Blood.
Yes.
Is being said. Okay, I'm not responding to you. I'm just letting the people of Alpine know that there is no form of nepotism. I do not get hired by anybody in the city. I am an elected official. I was elected by the people of my ward. I was not hired by the city secretary or anybody in management of the city of Alpine. Just want y'all to know either that nobody in administration holds office. And I would like to know what grounds we have for termination on these two individuals. What grounds are we using to terminate contracts?
We don't have, we are an at-will.
Oh, I understand that. But do you realize the liability that you put the city in? So there's gotta be some reason as why we're letting you.
At-will employment, that's what I put on the agenda, and I feel comfortable in my decision.
Excuse me, at this time, I'd like to step in.
Yes, ma'am.
Just because you're an at-will employee in the state of Texas does not mean you can blatantly violate somebody's employment contract. Nor can you go against policy and procedure for the city to fire them at will, because at will. I don't think that's a good response. I think you need to give more information out there. And I believe Mr. Zimmer has a chance to build. Okay. Okay. Mr. Zimmer?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to address a couple things, and certainly appreciate the responses from several citizens today. Certainly over the years have developed a lot of good friendships. When I interviewed on September 3rd of 2019, one of the things that I had shared with council at that time and shared with the community was that the phone calls to me had started in March of that year with concerns at the city. When I did interview, it was something that could have been done in executive session, and I opted to do it in open session. Very important to do that from my perspective for transparency. You know, during that, we negotiated the terms of the contract. October 15th, the council came back and ratified and approved those terms of the contract. September 1st of 2020, as former Councilman Rick Stevens stated, we had my performance review at 12 months. That again was done in open session. The purpose of that certainly was to reflect on the work that I had done over the year. And when I say I had done it, it's really an assembly of a wonderful team and good people that I have the good fortune of working with. January 5th of this, actually January 4th of this year, in the City Manager blog, we rolled out accomplishments for 2020. January 5th, we reviewed those in the council meeting, which stimulated a workshop on February 2nd to dig deeper into city initiatives and priorities. Unfortunately, February 26th had a stalking incident at my residence in Albuquerque. Person came into my neighborhood and a teenage daughter. That gentleman sitting behind my brother is a man responsible for that. Our elected official also repurposed that stalking incident on social media. That causes quite a bit of angst and turmoil within my family. March 16th, our city attorney rolled through the pretenses of my contract and what was negotiated and validated that I was operating within the constructs and confines of that contract. In my career with the city of Alpine, I have never been questioned on a performance issue. And so when I look at this and I see a motion and a second made by two people that I've never sat down and had a conversation, that certainly sends a message loud and clear. Within my contract, there is a statement. There is a whereas. And it does state that the city council is required, or not necessarily required, but encouraged full work productivity by assuring the manager's morale and peace of mind with respect to future security. That's outlined. That's what the council signed. And it does talk about termination agreement after that as well. But I would tell you that it feels like today we've been stood up in a firing line. Not only from a morale perspective for myself, but for our staff. And whatever council determines this evening, I now have a significant morale issue, or council's going to have a significant morale issue. And with that, I'll yield to Ms. Wilson.
Okay.
Yes, excuse me, I'm gonna call a point of order here
I was just
because
gonna do that. You will let me have my say on this. I think as council, we all need to review your appraisals, also your contract. And I'd recommend that we table this item until the council has a full chance to review everything. I don't want to hold the city in liability. Okay, it's taxpayers' money, and I feel that if we go into a lawsuit, it could go either way, and the city be out of monies. So I highly recommend that this motion be tabled.
Before we table, we're going to further
We're
discuss
just
on that.
I'm not done yet. And so I just feel that that's the right thing to do. Okay, that's my recommendation. And now I'm gonna call upon the board.
point of order, as a city attorney, my job is to represent the city of Alpine. I do not represent any individual here. And it's interesting to me tonight that there's been talk of vendetta and personal agendas here. I have done my research concerning my client, the city of Alpine. I'm very concerned about the legal liability here. And as council members, you need to hear what I have to say so that when you decide how you're going to rule, you have it down factual. With that, I'm going to start out. I have a timeline that I want to pass out to the council member, and you can pass one down to the city manager and the city secretary. I'm going to tell you what's going on here because you council members, the citizens out here need to know what's really happening. I have firsthand knowledge. I have evidence. I have documentation, and I'm about to go. Since Robert Martin was appointed in November of 2019 as the chief of the police department, his office and the city of Alpine have been under a nonstop, almost terroristic attack by the Brewster County Sheriff, Ronnie Dodson, who will stop at
I'm gonna call a point of order that's got nothing to do with the motion at hand now.
Yes, sir, it does, because it does, Mayor, it does,
Okay.
because I get to explain.
I call the point of order now.
She.
Okay? And I'm gonna
Do
get-
the people want to hear this? Or
I
do
wanna
you-
hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay.
I'm the city attorney and I get to talk at will to tell the council where we're going. You have to hear the facts of this case before you make your decision. And it's a timeline that has to be heard because when you look at these things one by one, you don't get the point. But when you bring them together, you understand what's going on. Now, may I continue?
Yes.
Are you soliciting?
I am not soliciting. I am giving facts.
But you just solicited the.
I'm giving facts. I have the right as the attorney. Is that not right, city manager?
Yep, she has the floor.
I have the floor. So you let me talk. He will not stop to achieve nothing to achieve his two main objectives: to fire 3 ex-deputies for having the audacity to leave him and to gain control over the police department. And you're about to see the evidence. You need to hear the backstory on what is really going on tonight before making the decision about the city manager, the city secretary, the 3 ex-deputies listed on Ms. Stokes' agenda, because you made a promise to your constituents to protect the well-being of this city. And as the attorney, I'm going to argue and fight for my client, which is the city. Look at those first 3 bullets on your timeline of events. You have Robert Mark resigned from the Brewster County Sheriff after 3 years to become the police chief. 12-2, Corporal Deputy Will Droy resigns from Brewster County Sheriff after 7 years to work for the police department. 12-6, Chief Edward Cardoza resigns from Alpine Police Department after over 14 years of service to work for the Alpine Police Department. Now, look at the next one. On March 4th of 2020, Chief Martin, and this is relevant, so you've got to hear me out. He receives a threatening voicemail from Brewster County Attorney regarding the arrest of Brewster County Attorney's grandson by the Alpine Police Department. Chief Martin, will you approach up here, please? Did you receive a voicemail from the county attorney here?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Would you play it for the council so they can see what's going on?
Robert, it's Steve here tonight, probably again on your cruise, but where I'm having a big problem with Daryl Sawyer here. He is basically took my grandson, they drove him from his apartment, his car, which is an inbound, they're claiming it's evidence in a continuing investigation, which has got to be bullshit. And has also told me that you didn't on felony cases to seize the vehicle, that they're gonna start procedures to seize my car. I own that car, which is a bunch of crap. And I'm told Daryl today that if that, if this keeps up, I'm not taking any more office reports from the PD and the county attorney's office. So if you want to give me a call, whenever you get a chance, I'd love to talk to you because this is out of control. And the other thing is, they don't even have anybody on this charge that has filed a complaint. So anyway, I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Chief Martin. The problem that I have with this is the grandson was arrested by the Alpine Police Department. The lead investigator is Will Droy. He was arrested for a drive-by shooting where he shot an individual in town and struck him with a bullet. The vehicle is evidence in a case. So his threat there is scary, and it makes you understand more how this is going to develop against the attack against the city. This indictment is public record. It's a first-degree felony offense with a range of punishment of 5 to 99 years. And the Brewster County grand jury indicted this case in November of 2020, and it is being handled by the Attorney General's office for obvious reasons. It's not going to be a good situation if someone down here handles it locally, and that's what the Attorney General's office does. Since when does a person go free after shooting another person with a gun just because his relative is an elected official? That's real scary stuff. This also explains a connection to the sheriff and the county attorney regarding the release of the video that's going to be discussed below and is on our agenda item tonight. And this is relevant. And the appalling part is the county attorney is brazen enough to leave the threat on a voicemail. He certainly makes it well known that he has beef with Alpine Police Department. Now, look at your next bullet here. Sheriff Dotson texted Chief Martin and told him that Edward would not be allowed in the jail until Martin returned from his cruise. I'm going to pass out some information. These are text messages from the sheriff himself, where he actually texted that message on March 5th of 2020 to Chief Martin. And you know what he said? You know why he said he didn't want Edward in his jail anymore? Not because he did some illegal act, not because he was abusing his duties as a police officer, because the sheriff heard that Edward had talked about him. And there's 2 pages on that. The other page, at the top of the other page, I'm referencing a July 26, 2019 case where he told another officer to stay the F out of his jail because he was talking about him. There are many other documented instances that whenever you upset Sheriff Dotson, he will not let those officers put their people in jail. That's where this is all stemming from. No legitimate law enforcement issue here. And then read your next bulletin here on March 7th. When Chief Martin returned to work early March from his cruise, he received a call from Sheriff Dotson inquiring about the issue between the county attorney and APD. He ended the conversation to Chief Martin, who was here to verify, stating, you know, he's immune from a lot of things. Well, I'm here to say that no elected official is ever immune from abusing their office or acts of terrorism against another agency or another. Serve the people, not the other way around. And my question is, why is the sheriff even involved? My contention is the sheriff has issued a bail warning to Alpine Police Department to tread carefully. That is not his job. He should never have even done it. Where's the concern for the safety of the citizens? And what is one elected official doing meddling into the issues of another elected official that have no relation or any bearing on his office? That supports the agenda that we're here tonight for. Now look at your mid-March 2020. The sheriff calls Chief Martin demanding Will Droy be fired because some Facebook post by Droy's father on the father's personal page. So now we have an issue of an elected official who wants to censor another person for exercising their First Amendment right of speech by posting what he believed to be true on his own personal social media. During this conversation, the sheriff also warned Chief Martin that if he did not fire Troy, there would be problems between the Alpine Police Department and the Brewster County Sheriff. And he asked Martin what he would do if the sheriff refused to allow the Alpine Police Department officers to place arrested individuals in the Brewster County Sheriff's Office and in the jail. This begins the magistration issue that has led to the refusal of the Brewster County Jail to accept all arrestees, as was the norm prior to Chief Martin becoming Chief of Police. This behavior further places the citizens of Alpine, you, your family, your friends, at risk, using intimidation and threats that interfere with the duty Alpine Police Department owes the city, which in turn creates a liability issue for the city, who is my client. Again, there's no legal or logical reason for this threat. Now look at your April 14 bullet there. Droy posted one of many memes on his personal Facebook page from a site called Poorly Made Police Memes. No names are in it. They're just stupid things. These officers and nurses, we have our own memes. We post stupid stuff too. We do. Lawyers do. We just have dumb memes we post. Well, Sheriff Dotson called Chief Martin and wanted to immediately meet with him and Eric Zimmer. However, both the chief and the city manager were unable to meet on short notice due to other obligations. So when Chief Martin called or talked to the sheriff again to explain it, the sheriff replied that he would take matters into his own hands and hung up on the chief. Now, this is the interesting date you need to keep in mind. The Brewster County Jail, after that phone call, immediately began refusing admittance of all Alpine Police Department arrestees. Those create a safety issue for the city and a big liability issue because we do not have the facilities, holding cells to house someone until the magistrate comes out and magistrates him the next day. Here we are, over a year later, sheriff still not met with Chief Martin or city officials to resolve the issue. Is he afraid? Is he afraid of the chief? Is he afraid to be confronted with an issue that he knows clearly puts the citizens of the city and county at risk? This is just another example of a personal vendetta that was discussed here tonight by the sheriff and how he uses underhanded tactics to interfere with the functions of the police department. And this is critical. Now, April 25th, Alpine Police Department arrested an individual who is the subject of, I believe, the next agenda item for Councilwoman Stokes coming up. And he was refused, interesting to note, he was refused admittance into the jail until he was magistrated. This becomes important later because later on, when we get down to September, that's one of the things the sheriff is telling people, well, they don't have probable cause and I won't let them in unless they're magistrated. This individual was already magistrated. He was magistrated by a magistrate who's supposed to determine the independent probable cause, which is a reasonable belief that an individual has committed a crime. I want to pass this out as an example. I have the call sheet from the Alpine Police Department on this call, specifically on this call. Will Droy was the arresting officer. Edward Cardoza, who is also an ex-deputy, was the victim in this case. Look at the area highlighted in orange. These call logs are filled out as soon as the call comes in, and this booking sheet clearly shows where the sheriff was already refusing arrestees from Alpine Police Department until they're magistrated. Also see the portion that was marked out. That's called redaction. And it is required, any law enforcement agency is required by law, if they're going to disseminate or pass out a document, they have a duty to protect personal information of the defendant, the victim, when sharing the cases. This original case was leaked to the public by the sheriff's office, completely unredacted. So you have an individual out there with all his personal information out there. As a result, of personal identifying information of the defendant was released. And I'm going to tell you, I spoke to his family. They were horrified. They were never contacted by the county attorney or the sheriff prior to leaking this video. Why? Why? That's my question. Is their family member expendable to two elected officials who are mad at the police department? How would you feel if this happened to you and your family and no one even had the decency to let you know? This case was turned over to the county attorney in July of 2020. He in turn handed it over to the Brewster County Sheriff's Office. He had no reason to turn that case over. He turned it over unredacted. This supports my contention that the issue started on April 14th when the chief could not meet with the sheriff on short notice. It's another example of retaliation against the Alpine Police Department for not doing what the sheriff wants. Again, no legal reason was given, and a huge liability for the city, which concerns me. The next one, go to the second page of your bullets, please. So come June 2020, the issue becomes more pronounced as magistrates refuse to magistrate arrested individuals at night, and they get drawn into this nonsense. Alpine is complying with the demands of the sheriff as best they can. They continue to do their job. They continue to arrest individuals who break the law. Local magistrates normally do not come out at night because the jail has always, and I mean always, admitted arrestees for the night from all agencies, unless you make the sheriff mad, as is on the second page of the text message that he sent to an Alpine police officer because he was mad at that officer. So that's important. And then to make matters worse, these magistrates, they're caught up in all this, and they're not even responsible for any of it. They have a certain amount of time to be able to magistrate these individuals. That's not fair to them. So then the next thing that happens July 17th of 2020 is Will Droy decides he's going to run as right-hand opponent against Sheriff Dodson. And that's your next bullet. Now the personal attacks against Roy are going to intensify and they're vicious. All because he exercised his right to run for a public office, like all of you did on the board. All challenges and calls for debate to the sheriff by Roy were met with silence by the sheriff and horrific attacks by his minions. Predictable pattern of abuse from this elected official. Now look at August 8th. Now we have an incident that is really going to create a huge liability for the city. The Alpine Police Department arrested an individual at night who was criminally trespassing and causing a scene at someone's house. They were refused admittance into the jail. So they had to babysit that person hours waiting for the magistrate to wake up and come in. Unfortunately, during that time, this person bolted out the door of the police department and ran down the street with the handcuffs on. Think of the liability the city would have incurred because the police department is responsible for that person until they're magistrated. The liability to the city was huge if that person had been injured or had injured somebody else in this. My question, where's the concern for the citizens of this city and the county? My contention is his agenda is more important than any safety issues. Now, September 1st, when I was district attorney, I reached out to the sheriff, to the Brewster County judge, to the city manager, and chief of police regarding my concerns about the August 8th arrest. Because now I'm getting felony cases on people who shouldn't have to have a felony charge just because there's a feud between the Alpine Police Department and the Sheriff's Department. That should never happen. I don't care if you're charged with a crime. You have rights to be treated fairly by the defense as well as the prosecution. And I'm concerned about that because I don't know what else is going on out there at that time. Only Judge Cano agreed to meet. And when we did meet, we met right here at a round table. He was very hostile. He was uncooperative. And he recorded the entire meeting as if we were accusing him of some horrible crime. We never got a response from Sheriff Dotson other than to relay through Judge Cano. So I know he got my message that he will be on standby. What does that even mean? Why are you on standby when you're putting the citizens at risk and using your office to create a liability situation for the police department? Why will the sheriff not meet face-to-face to address the issue? He has yet to meet face-to-face to address this issue. What is he afraid of? Where is the cooperation between law enforcement agencies that he's always claims to foster? Now, if you look at September 3rd, then the former city attorney sends a memo to the city stating that the sheriff no longer, now at this point, September 3rd, no longer had confidence in the professional conduct of two former deputies. That is a document on file. Will Droy and Edward Cardoza were the deputy. That's the reason he said that he makes Alpine Police Department magistrate the people. We note the length of time these three deputies served at the Brewster County Sheriff's Office. Chief Martin was promoted to the court bailiff, which is an especially important job that requires additional qualifications. He came from a large police department where he served as a well-decorated law enforcement officer for 20+ years. I believe he can make an arrest, and I believe he knows how to police. Cardoza worked for the sheriff the longest, and he handled the majority of administrative duties as well as was lead investigator for major crimes. Many of his cases resulted in convictions. And Droy is a seasoned officer who worked in several areas of Brewster County and made many an arrest for criminal offenses. And while they were working for the sheriff, these seasoned officers' actions were deemed competent. And the sheriff had no problem with their probable cause arrest procedures or performance. And Cardoza and Droy both promoted up the department because they stayed the longest. Why now that they're with the Alpine Police Department are we having all these issues where he doesn't have confidence in them? And the next problem that I have, the biggest problem of all, I guess, is what happened on September 5th of 2020. That's when this video was leaked on social media regarding the April 25th arrest by Droy, where Cardoza was the victim. Now I'm going to pass this out to the members as well. This is a copy of the Facebook post, which is public. Horrific.
Restate what you just said,
I want to make sure I just heard that correct. What did you just say right now before you passed out the picture?
I just said that September 5th is when this video is leaked on social media.
And the video is about?
It is about the action item that Ms. Stokes has tonight, calling it a false arrest, which it is not, and implicating the two ex-deputies who are now police departments. And I'm about to explain it to you. You're about to understand. It was turned over, this case associated with this and this video was turned over to the Brewster County Attorney on July 20th by the Alpine Police Department, where the county attorney never one time reached out to the chief of police or the city about any issues with the case before handing it over to the sheriff's office. And I can tell you from experience, a prosecutor rejecting a case simply lets the originating agency know he will not proceed at that time. It does not automatically end the case because the agency has the opportunity to further investigate and gather additional evidence if needed. Interesting to note, at the time this was going on, the Brewster County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy's wife was doing an internship in the county attorney's office. And the chief deputy was the one that filled out the TPIA request. Somebody had to dig through those files and find dirt on Will Droy and Edward Cardoza. And as a side note, there were a lot of comments made on social media that because they filed a TPIA request that it covered everything. Not true. Section 1701.661 of the Texas Occupational Code has specific requirements for additional information that is required before you release a body cam, information that is not provided in the standard TPIA request. There are additional requirements there. Coincidence? I don't think so. And I think it only shows how the two ex-deputies were singled out. My contention is that we're looking for dirt on Droy, and the wife was reviewing all cases by Droy in order to promote the smear campaign by the sheriff towards Droy. And the first line, the first deal on this video that was leaked says, "Is this the guy you want to be your sheriff?" Political. So in addition, and I think it's even more horrifying, the video was posted on Facebook by a current employee of the sheriff. He's a civilian. He has absolutely no legal right to review a criminal case. How would you like it if someone was accusing you of crime and their friends got to look at that? Very, very, I think that's horrible. Especially one where the personal identifying information of the defendant and the victim were left unredacted, which is required by law. Edward Cardoza was off duty at the time. He called in the complaint to the Alpine Police Department because the offense is in the city, so he followed the correct protocol. He completed the appropriate witness statement just like any other citizen would do when they call in. Cardoza also recounts in his statement that he found the defendant up against his fence, looking into his yard several times. You have an area called curtilage outside of your house that not even the law enforcement can go onto. Once you're on that, you're on their property. These were facts that were left out of this video. They were left out of that. When Cardoza, my question is, why is Cardoza being attacked? He's defending his own property, which we all have that right. And why is he attacked for being a victim of a crime? I think that's pretty bad. And to make matters worse, the video was shared by a Brewster County deputy, an employee of the county attorney's office, and an employee of the Brewster County Sheriff's Office, which I believe Ms. Stokes knows is her, where it is still on her Facebook page. These three county employees are all in violation of Texas Occupational Code 1701.659 if they release or share a body cam recording without permission of the applicable law enforcement agency. Here, that would be the police department. This is a Class A misdemeanor offense. My contention is the video was leaked by the county attorney in retaliation for Alpine PD prosecuting his relative and not for any legitimate law enforcement purpose. Sheriff Dotson, in turn, had the video leaked by his little dutiful minions who viciously attacked his two ex-deputies. Sheriff Dotson also claims this is why he is making Alpine Police Department magistrate. But once again, the call log on the 25th of April clearly says that practice began April 14th after he told Chief Martin he was going to take matters into his own hands. And the Brewster County Attorney's Office didn't even receive the file until the end of July. So I know that confirms it. Also, if he requires an individual to be magistrated to ensure there's probable cause, why is this arrest suddenly a false arrest? Magistrate found probable cause to issue a warrant for the individual's arrest in this case. The sheriff can't have it both ways, and is yet another example that his agenda is to get his ex-deputies fired. What better way than to talk trash about them and have his minions post false information over social media? In addition, if you look at the bottom part of that post by Sheriff Dotson's employee, it stated, I'd say the two officers in the video and their superior should be fired immediately. Does that sound familiar? Same chant made by the sheriff. Now, September to February, no response from the county or the sheriff. We got on here. We've been asking for conferences to calls. We've been discussing the issue of the sheriff, the jail's encroachment on city property. No response. In the meantime, the municipal court, we're doing good. Municipal court's getting back on track. The APD is better staffed. They're out patrolling the city. They're working criminal cases. This police department is doing what it's supposed to do. And in short, they're following state and federal guidelines, and they're growing stronger while they're decreasing liability to my client, which is the city. Alpine Police Department has improved its presence in the city, a fact that I don't believe goes unnoticed by the sheriff. And there's a side note of some additional things that are going on, attacks on the city that you need to be aware of. In addition to what's going on here, the sheriff has encrypted the sheriff department radios so the police department cannot be heard or cannot hear if either an Alpine police or Brewster County Sheriff's officer is in danger or a bad situation is happening in Alpine. That's just egregious. Let me finish. Alpine Police Department relied on Saul Ross too. They were encrypted, so they relied on Saul Ross to come help them. Until the sheriff had the Saul Ross dispatch transferred to his department, and he's encrypted them as well. In addition, I have firsthand knowledge from several deputies, ex-deputies that come talk to me, that all Brewster County Sheriff's deputies are forbidden from assisting an Alpine police officer, and Alpine police is forbidden by the sheriff from assisting Brewster County Sheriff. There are several documented cases that I have proof of. One of them, a case in particular, is that Officer Droy was involved a deputy fighting with an individual. When Droy pulled up to assist, he was told to leave because he can't assist per sheriff's orders. How is that ever okay to put our law enforcement officers at such risk? These patrol officers are working on the front line to protect our citizens. Are their lives not important? Are they considered expendable by an elected official who swore on an oath to protect and serve? Again, another tactic to lead the police department, which will in turn cause liability issues for the city of Alpine. We're almost finished. February 27th, the post that Mr. Zimmer talked about, there was a post put on Facebook by that gentleman sitting over there in the hat behind you, Buddy Cavness. It was vile, and it made a direct attack on Mr. Zimmer and his family. It even posted pictures of his personal residence where his wife and children reside. What kind of a horrible individual living in our community is willing to post such horrific stuff about a man who's working extremely hard to ensure this city is functioning poorly? He's Sheriff Dotson's one of his best friends. That's why. This is again another example of a common tactic used by one elected official to personally attack an individual in our community for his own self-serving needs. You know, my question is this: this is the work of a bully and a minion of the sheriff who did not have the guts or the maturity to talk to Mr. Zimmer face to face like a man. That's what that was. It's becoming evident as you're seeing down this timeline here that the city manager is getting in the way of Sheriff Dotson's ultimate goal to fire the 3 ex-deputies and take control over the police department. Upon research, it's discovered that the allegations were made, of course, by this gentleman over here, that the city manager's contract was illegal and he was abusing and taking the company car. Totally in his contract. You can, in most states in the United States, enter into a contract with any other person or entity or company as long as it doesn't violate state or federal law. This contract entered into by city council, approved by the mayor himself who signed it, is legal. And the same rant continues out there. Oh, it's illegal. It's illegal. It is not. That is wrong. That is false. And you know, that's why Mr. Zimmer's on this hit list agenda that we have out tonight. No. Oh.
No comments.
No, let me finish. That's why he's on the hit list tonight. And what's his crime? Doing a fantastic job for the city and not backing down from the sheriff. No other crimes. You heard all the positive comments about him. That's his crime. And then May 10th, Ms. Stokes, she was elected on city council. No one argued she could not run or the election was illegal. Everything was done proper. Here's where my fears for the city council begin, is she immediately demands her agenda, AKA her hit list, be the first thing she does for the city as council member. And she can't even give you a reason why. Now, remember, she worked for Sheriff Dodson for a long
19
time.
years.
And I believe that he was her campaign manager. And she continued, despite knowing the smart tactic stuff, she continued to run on the platform that the city manager is doing something illegal, which is absolutely not true, and sets the city up for a lawsuit at this point. Did she ever contact him? No. Did she ever really want to find the truth? No. Now she's got this agenda that's really a hit list for Sheriff Dodson. That's my professional, personal feeling. Now, first on the list that was originally put out, and Ms. Stokes won't disagree, was to get rid of me. I was number 1 on the list, which was just planned for later tonight. Not only am I outspoken, which y'all ought to be able to figure out by now, but I too stood up against Sheriff Dodson and refused to do his bidding. More importantly, I know this backstory that I'm telling y'all tonight. This is what he's really doing to the city, and I'm not afraid to stand up to him and his minions and voice my concerns to protect my client, the city of Alpine. Next is to get to Eric Zimmer. Because why? Because Eric Zimmer oversees the police department, and it's obvious from the good work the police department is doing, he clearly supports Chief Martin. Once he's out of the way, the plan is to replace him with someone who will find a reason to fire Chief Martin once Mr. Zimmer's gone, who like Eric Zimmer refuses to back down or be controlled by the sheriff. Next, the plan is to go after Ms. Salas, who had a contentious relationship, as we all know, with the mayor. Not hesitate to make them do the right thing. I know that I have evidence that the mayor is a pretty big fan of the sheriff, and let me tell you something about that. That felony conviction that she has, you cannot run for a public office, not work for a public city. There is a difference in the law that you cannot do that. And all of this for a felony conviction over 30 years old for a hot check written to a federal bank for $63.20 when she was young.
That's it.
That's her punishment. That is it. Finally, I'm almost through. The plan is to attack the 3 ex-deputies based off a video that was illegally released by the sheriff's office for campaign purposes to smear drawing. This is in violation of the Texas Penal Code 3906, misuse of official information, a 3rd-degree felony offense, and that is what I believe the sheriff has done. This tactic is needed to make all 3 officers look bad to the public, who will then demand their removal. Once the sheriff gets someone as chief that he can control, the magistration issue, mark my words, will automatically, miraculously disappear. And everything will be right with the world again. However, you're about to have an elected official who not only has control of the county as the sheriff's department, but now is going to take over the city. And that's a scary proposition for the citizens here to have. Separately, if you look at these, that's why I needed the time, council people. These attacks on the city appear random, but however, when you put them in a timeline, such as I did tonight, it becomes increasingly clear that Sheriff Dodson is driving his agenda for his own self-serving needs and not the safety of the citizens, which was voiced several times tonight. My contention is he could care less if my client, the city of Alpine, and its citizens incur hundreds of thousands in dollars in unlawful termination lawsuits. Imagine coming to work every day as Eric Zimmer has, Chief Martin has, his two deputies, and doing the right thing for the citizens of this community while constantly being attacked by an elected official using terroristic, behind the scenes, underhanded tactics whose only objective is for his self-serving needs. These individuals are not on the chopping block tonight because you're doing a phenomenal job, which they are. And we've had lots of information supporting that. They're here tonight because the sheriff wants them gone because he cannot control them. Nothing more. So before you make a decision tonight, council members, I want you as city attorney with my client in mind, I want you to ask yourself the following questions. Is the decision I make after receiving some, I think, compelling evidence clearly showing a great threat to the city and my constituents who chose me to protect and represent them? Is it going to be you keeping that in mind? And am I willing to make the right decision, or will I simply fold and become a pawn for someone else's personal agenda? That is my concern for the city as the city attorney.
Question, make a recommendation.
I move that we take appropriate action regarding contracts and most recent employee evaluations.
Okay, you gotta make an amendment to the motion.
I move that we amend the motion to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action regarding the employment contract and most recent employee evaluations for City Manager Eric Zimmer and City Secretary Cynthia Salas.
Okay, is there a second on this? There's no second.
No.
Okay, now, on the original motion, let's go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
What motion are we done?
So we're talking back on the original motion. Yes, ma'am. Okay,
Could you have her repeat it so everybody knows, sir?
sure.
All right, go right ahead.
Absolutely, because I felt like I was attacked and didn't get to reply, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of time. I'd like to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action regarding the employment contracts, employee evaluations for City Manager Eric Zimmer, City Secretary Cynthia Salas, and I move that we terminate both of them. Can she vote on Ms. Salas? She can vote
Yes.
on Ms. Salas. Then we'll take them one at a
That one
time.
is solid because there's a conflict there.
I'll reword it. Like to discuss, consider, and take appropriate action regarding the employment contract and most recent evaluation of City Manager Eric Zimmer. I make a motion that we terminate as of tonight.
Okay, and you've already made the motion, there's been a lot of discussion on it, so we're gonna vote on the motion. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
You need a second one.
Oh, we had already seconded, and we had gone to discussion.
Okay, we're going.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so back to Ms. Stokes' motion, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Whoa. Whoa. You're voting to terminate him? I thought your motion was to take it.
Okay,
You're gonna terminate him?
Wait a minute, I had made the motion that we should, I had made the recommendation of the motion that we reconsider after reading everything else, okay? Is appraisals, et cetera. Now, Ms. Stokes is the one that made the motion. And after the discussion, we really are going ahead and vote on Eric Zimmer employment, okay?
No, not okay.
Well, it's not okay, but that's what the council, that's the job of the council.
Do
okay?
you realize what you just voted for? Yeah,
Okay,
you just
well,
bankrupted us.
there's no discussion, folks, okay? There's no discussion. We have 3 votes. We have 3 votes, and that's why I asked the council to raise their hand, so you know who votes, okay?
I know that she never supported. She never said why. She said,
I
want to hear why. I want to hear why. Why?
She just said we're going in different directions. Okay?
What direction?
Now, the motion's been made and seconded, and we voted on it.
Now I'm.
It's 3 against 1, or 3 against 2, 1 abstain.
You get the government you want now, don't
Here you
you?
go, you abstain, okay. And those against 1, right? Okay. That is it.
Shame.
Okay.
Shame! Shame! Illegal.
Let's have some order, here, folks. Let's have some order.
Why? There wasn't any order just a minute ago.
From Mr. Disorder.
I don't want to have to ask him back to leave because it's very crucial in what we're doing. And y'all have to understand this, that this is the way the city council works, okay? In order to terminate a city manager, you have to have 5 council members sitting at the table. And 3 votes will make for termination, okay? Now, let's move on to City Secretary Salas.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make one point of order. if I
Yes, sir,
may.
you sure may.
Relative to city council, you cannot have a member abstain unless they are